Hello, everybody. This is Kristine from Mom Vegan Love, and I'm so excited to be here today. I got a very special guest, my dear friend and mentor, Jamie Day. Welcome.
Hi, Kristine. Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited you're here. My whole body's just like, ah! So tell us a little bit about yourself and all the beautiful work you do for our community.
Well, I do lots of different groups for women, and this year included men too, in a few of the circles. So lots of sacred circles, really accessing, actualizing, activating, and embodying that higher self connection. That for me at this time really looks like blending, respecting, honoring, and loving both our masculinity and our femininity in a sacred marriage. So for some of my groups that focus specifically on female shamanism, we really go back and re-narrate that story of divine feminine empowerment within every living thing. And then for more advanced work, my oracular visioning group, we really blend those simultaneous Kundalini energies of the masculine and the feminine within to birth forth that new life, that new divine child of self, of being. So I facilitate those groups. I do a group that is not my proprietary information, but is based on a wonderful spiritual platform that works with the Ascended Masters. And that is a Sophia Circle journey that was created by Kaya Ra, who is the woman who channeled in the sacred codex, the Sophia Code. So I facilitate those circles as well. I've written a book called Soul to Sisterhood that everybody on this call has thankfully been a huge piece of and support system for. I could not have done that without every person here. And so Soul to Sisterhood has a weekly group as well, where we circle Tuesday mornings on Zoom and work through a chapter of the book each week. And it's really a goddess sanctuary built on sisterhood. So I do those groups, and I also work individually with clients. I work with men and women individually. I also work with couples and families. I am a formerly licensed psychotherapist. We talked about this yesterday. So anybody who gets to see my video on the summit, I talk a little bit about this in the end, but I went back to graduate school in the mid 2000s and had this trajectory of becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist and a registered drama therapist. And at that time, it was just such a fit for who I was then and where I was going. And as my work has just transformed and given rebirth to itself, so many different modalities have come into my healing and transformational work that don't necessarily feel like a traditional psychotherapy session. So I decided to relinquish my license. That was just a personal and a spiritual choice through my own sovereignty, so that I could really be in alignment with myself as I work with my clients. So I see people, like I said, individually and as couples and as families. And I just so love my work. It is definitely, I'm in the sort of sweet spot of the mission of my divine purpose. So thank you for asking, honey.
Yeah, we're so grateful for you. I personally had the opportunity and just pleasure to be in so many of your groups, and you have just lifted me up, and I'm just so there are no words for how grateful I am of the work that you do.
Watch it. We're going to have to interpretive dance in a minute. All of us. Well, that gratitude goes always to everybody on this call. Bridget, Elizabeth, Ann, Tim, Kristine, I love you guys so much, and I'm so grateful to you. And I know I wouldn't be me unless you were you and we were all supporting each other in the way that we do. And I really do mean that. We are a family. We are a tribe. We are a sisterhood and a brotherhood. And when we come together in the ways that we come together with interdependence, we really do lift one another up to our highest potential. So I'm so grateful for all of you.
Okay, let's dig in. I wrote some very official questions because this is a very official interview.
Oh, I could feel that.
You can feel that. Okay, let's shift. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your journey to veganism and eating plant-based.
Well, my journey to veganism and being plant-based was one based in compassionate choices. And I talked about this a bit yesterday in our summit interview that I kind of dabbled with veganism and focusing on plant-based eating choices for quite some time, and vacillated in and out. And even though I knew I was making that choice internally because I had compassion for what was on my plate, or more specifically, what was not on my plate, I still wasn't fully in my empowered, I would say, knowing to be able to give voice to why I was doing what I was doing. And I even said this yesterday. I remember a defining moment where I didn't claim my truth. I was serving some raw vegan granola that I'd made in my my big food dehydrator. And I remember telling somebody, I just do this for the health benefits. And at that point, I was like, no, you don't. Why aren't you saying your truth? Why aren't you speaking your truth? And that was probably 10 years ago. And it was that moment, like that pivot point, that I thought, why am I not claiming my truth? What can I be curious about around this so that I can realign myself with my truth? So like I said, vacillated back and forth between plant-based, vegetarianism, veganism, and then not eating vegan or vegetarianism, or I should say vegetarian. I would say from the time I was pregnant until my daughter was maybe 3 or 4. And then when she was 5 and in kindergarten, or starting kindergarten, I decided to go complete plant-based, and have been vegan ever since. And so something that I wanted to bring to light today that I forgot to mention yesterday, not because I was trying to be insincere or untrue, and I know we're talking about codependency and food addiction today, was that during COVID, during the lockdown, there were 2 different times when I had animal products. I had some drunken goat cheese one Friday night, and I had a scallop dish that my husband fixed for me in 2020. And it's so interesting. My daughter Pearl is such a little truth teller, because she'll hear me say that I'm vegan and she'll say, Mom, no, you're not, because there were those 2 times during COVID. And so thinking about our topic of conversation today, the codependency around the complexity of our food choices, and that can be said the other way too, the complexity around the codependency regarding our food choices, and sort of different ways in which we seek to comfort ourselves from the outside in. You know, I have so much compassion for that version of myself in 2020, because we were all scared. We were all in a brand new world that we didn't have a manual for. We were kind of making it up as we went along, and we were being bombarded with so many different messages, so many different fear-based messages of terror. And a lot of how that culminated within my household was conflict between my husband and I, which I know is a similar story. We all experience that when things get pressurized and compressed. And that night that I chose to have that drunken goat cheese, I remember I was just looking for some comfort. I was looking to connect, and I was looking to go back to the ways that felt safe, back to the way we were, so to speak, to quote that great movie and song. And in eating that cheese, I remember that night, I just remember those moments of hope, of like really trying to rewrite something that felt so wrong. And the same thing was that night with that scallop dish. That was one of the first things my husband made for me on our second date. And I remember the nostalgia of eating that in 2020 and feeling the dynamic feelings of guilt, and that I wasn't doing something that was in alignment with me, but also consistently striving to try to find that connection, that comfort. And so in preparation for our talk today, I just really had to sit with that and say, am I gonna let guilt and shame run this show anymore? Am I gonna hide from mistakes, or am I gonna really make a stand that it's okay to be imperfect? Like, this life is not about being perfect, or we wouldn't be here. This is Earth School for a reason. It's a big old classroom, and I'm allowed to make mistakes. And I'm also just as equally allowed to rewrite that ship, to rebalance the mast. And so I did today. I rebalanced it with compassion and thought, I'm allowed, just like everybody else is. Hi, Kim. It's good to see you. Love you. I'm allowed to tell my truth. I'm allowed to tell my story. And I'm also allowed to tell the story of how I got myself back on track for what was right for me. And what's right for me is going to be individual to or unique to me, just like it is for each of us. So that was a very long explanation. Plant-based journey, compassion, compassion, compassion. You and I talked about this a lot yesterday, and we have this conversation consistently that how can I ask other people to be compassionate about what they put on their plate if I'm not compassionate to myself and if I'm not compassionate to them? So for me, veganism is a consistent choice that I make for self-love and self-acceptance and self-awareness, but it's also a consistent choice I make towards that sort of oneness consciousness that I'm going to gift myself those things because I really want everybody to gift themselves the same.
Oh, wow. I hear everything you're saying. For me, when it comes to animal products, and I don't view them as food anymore, but I really hear what you're saying about just wanting to connect with your husband, and that seemed like a good way to do it. I will do that with my daughter, my oldest daughter. For some reason, or I know why, because this is from my early childhood. I felt connected with my parents watching TV on Friday nights, and we would eat treats. The treats were not necessarily treats for my body. They were candy, chips, soda, all that thing. So that's what I have now created with my daughter, that we will cozy up, just hang out, just the two of us, and we will eat something mindlessly, just because that's how I felt like we were connecting. And it's just like, I always feel, because I feel like I have so much love and compassion for animals. That's why I don't view cows or pigs and chickens as food anymore, but I don't have that compassion for myself just yet. It's a practice. I'm getting there. Like yesterday, for example, I know I posted on Instagram that we have found these sunflower chocolate cups from Trader Joe's. I mean, seriously, I would eat the whole bag. And I'm just like, I taste the first one, the 20th, I have stopped thinking about what I'm doing, but I keep eating it. Just like, what in that moment, what is happening? Why am I not like making conscious choices anymore?
Well, no, that question is dynamic because it feels rhetorical and it feels like it's deserving of a really well thought answer. I mean, why do we do these things with food? Because this kind of transcends eating choices and gets to the root of what eating fulfills or doesn't fulfill within us. So when it comes to things like just, like you said, you tasted the first one, and then by the 20th one, it was just a repetitive pattern. That goes to that question, why are we doing what we're doing? And in my line of work, working with specifically trauma wounded neurobiology and understanding how that behaviorally manifests in our relationships, especially the relationship we have with ourselves. These are ways that we've learned how to survive our environments. We have learned how to cope. We've learned how to self-soothe by doing these things. So they've all come about for really good reasons. There's a reason why we reach for comfort foods when we need comfort. There's a reason why we go into sort of a zone and we're just going through the repetitive motions, because just that habituated physicality soothes our system. We watch babies, roll back and forth to calm themselves. Or sometimes we do it like when I sit with my legs crossed, the leg that's crossed, I'll go ahead and I'll bounce that foot. These are ways that we have repetitive physicalizations to calm our system. Food is no different. Anything that we're using on the outside to fulfill, validate, or I would say, perpetuate the belief system that we're of worth and lovable on the inside. Those are things that we're going to do with repetitive patterns to consistently help ourselves to feel better. They are trauma responses, and they're here for really good reasons. The very interesting thing about the world that we live in is that these trauma responses, these trauma patterns are vilified. They're punished. We're told that, what's wrong with you? Why can't you stop doing this? Oh my gosh, it's just so easy. Make a different choice. And it's never just that easy. Making a different choice, if it were, we would. We have to give ourselves so much gentle understanding and patience and compassion around these things, because more shame and blame, more self-punishment, more criticism is just going to perpetuate the cycle, and it's going to push it down. Instead of it being something that is a mystery and we're curious about, it's going to push it into that place of it's secret. We've got to hide it, and what we repress rots. You've heard me say that before. So that gets rotten down there, and it like attracts like. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the more we try to hide it, the bigger it's going to get. And we've got to think about something like food. We have all of these different cultural understandings of substances that we can be addicted to, or behavioral patterns that we can be addicted to. However, we've been told we can quit doing certain things and still survive. There are certain substances that we imbibe with that we know we can stop imbibing them, and we're going to be okay. We're going to survive. We can stop the compulsive shopping with support. I'm not insinuating to attempt doing this on your own. There are so many great support systems out there and ways to support yourself. But if, say, compulsive shopping is something we struggle with, we can find ways to turn off or turn away from those particular patterns, those particular choices, and we're still going to be fine. We cannot stop eating.
Right.
We cannot turn away from nourishing the body with food. So that's where it can become a very slippery slope with food and putting it in our body, because it can't be a hard no. We've got to find a really interesting way of beginning to recreate this relationship with food. And you've got to think too, like, there's a reason why the term comfort food is everywhere. We all know what it means when somebody says, I need some comfort food. For us vegans, that means going up to, what do you call it, Elizabeth, the Dixie Kitchen in Orlando, and getting our vegan fried chicken and the vegan fried okra and the vegan mac and cheese. Like, there are plenty of ways we can eat unhealthy too, but that comfort, consistently seeking these validations that we're lovable and that we're worthy outside of ourselves, and trying to fill ourselves with it. So it can be really, really challenging to figure out why I started with one sunflower cup and then I realized that the bag is empty. But we've got to get underneath the why. Why are we doing this? What is it? What is our perception that this is fulfilling? And then how do I reach out for support to let somebody else hold space for me and to help me figure this out and to create a new way of being around my relationship to food, specifically for our conversation, but for substances and behaviors for other conversations.
Well, I so hear everything you're saying. And I know I've been trying to do, like I did a juice fast, for example, and it felt like I kind of was doing this like an addict living in a crack house, because I wasn't supposed to have sugar, wheat, oil, any processed food. And we eat pretty healthy here, but there's definitely, we have sugar, we have all these different things. And like you said, you can't just, and that's the thing, that the solution is not for me to move someplace and just live by myself. And I mean, there's just, it's not on the outside, right? The solution is not on the outside. It's just like, okay, so this food is around me, but what I was so present to too, is that when I do have that first piece of chocolate or whatever, to just feel it, taste it, kind of feel it like going all the way down, feeling how it feels like in my belly, and just being present with how it feels. And you taught me something awesome just this week, just doing like, what do you call it? Like divine.
Oh, the somatic narrative or divine choreography, putting movements to words to slow the brain and the conscious and unconscious processes down. It just gives you time to pause and reset.
Yeah, so like not this blink and then be on the 20th and the bag is gone. Just like after one, just being okay, getting back to my body here, just like how is the feeling, and then just because then I feel like I do have a choice, because I'm kind of getting put back in my body, and my body,
Yeah.
and I know that I'm not going to feel good eating this. So
Well, you bring up a great point. And this is another thing that I know we've talked about before in groups and stuff is, taking that little pause, doing the somatic narrative. And this is an intervention in psychotherapy, specifically from our wisdom teachers that are doing so much to just teach about trauma wounded neurobiology and the compassion needed to really transform that. But Pat Ogden is who I learned this from, and it's the somatic narrative, and I call it divine choreography, but it is giving movement to a thought pattern, giving movement to a feeling, and letting that sort of half of a second or a second of a pause be enough to derail that unconscious train. So the other thing that kind of goes with that is after we do, like, say, you have the the sunflower cup, and you're taking that mindful pause to really become aware of your connection to what you're experiencing as you eat it. And then you can add a piece of somatic narrative after that. Even, do I need another one? Yeah. And the other thing too is, does this lead me towards more joy and more love? That's a really great question for everything in life. What we're saying yes to, what we're saying no to, and why. It can be so simple. Does this lead me to more joy and love? And for those of us that have a rough time even listening to the yeses and the nos from our intuition and our higher self, it's a muscle, just like any muscle. You got to go to the gym, you got to work it out. And there are plenty of wonderful practitioners and different interventions out there to help us really solidify and open that relationship of listening to our intuition. Being able to hear it is one thing, being able to listen to it is another. But does this lead me towards more joy and love? And just pay attention. Where do you feel that answer in your body? You may not hear a yes or a no, but if you feel a tug in your belly and you feel like kind of coming in on yourself, that may be a no. If you feel a tug in your belly and your belly wants to do this, that may be a yes. Just really getting to know yourself when it comes to these sort of, I would say, psychological, energetic, and biological patterns that become so ingrained that we forget we're even doing them. But we also have to remember that the shame and blame that we gift ourselves also can become unconscious, and we don't even realize that we're doing that. But does that negate it or make it any less important or impactful on how we relate to ourselves and our world? Absolutely not. It is still there.
I love all that. That brings me to my next question. So if you are curious about starting on this vegan journey and going plant-based, and your spouse or partner or kids, whoever you live with, are not on board, what are some ways to get around that?
Well, it's very interesting, especially in light of what we're talking about, because so often sitting at the table and everybody having the same thing on their plate, it kind of gives us a sense of solidarity, a sense of connection, right? It's like you mentioned, that sense of being able to share those treats with your parents on a Friday night. We feel like there's strength in those numbers, and we don't want to be the one person at the dinner table who doesn't get to have the good tasting food. We feel like we're punishing ourselves, or somehow we're in a deficit of the collective experience. So there's a lot of shifting that can happen when it comes to the way we relate to ourselves and our world. And everything we've been talking about is part of that. When it comes to making a very specific dietary choice, like going plant-based, and we are sort of a lone wolf in our family, that can feel really daunting, especially if we're not used to carving our own path, to standing true to ourselves and not judging anybody else for standing true to themselves, but also not accepting others' opinions and judgments of us as our truth. So it takes a lot of internal, I would say, work around just knowing yourself, trusting in the moment that sometimes when we create boundaries, the people that are so used to us being a certain way, they get a little scared when they sense we're going to be a
Mhm.
different way, and people can push back. And we just have to give ourselves permission to let it not be okay for just a moment and trust that things will fall into place. So, like I said before, veganism is a very specific dietary choice. We typically have multiple opportunities a day to sit around a table and share food with people. What I have found, and what you and I talk about a lot, is the joy of vegan cooking, where we really get to create delicious, amazing looking food that other people are really interested in trying.
Mhm.
So for me, that's been a way to sort of share about my dietary choices, my compassionate living choices with my family and my extended family. I love to cook. I love to cook. I love to just open up a refrigerator and, look at it as my canvas. Um, and so having that sort of as part of me is I love to prepare food for people. And so if I'm the one preparing the food, you can bet it's going to be vegan.
Mhm.
And you can bet it's going to taste really good. So I love sort of sharing the mission, the message of the mission that way. And that can make things a little easier too. Does that mean though, that as the one vegan at the table, it's always going to be your responsibility to always make the food for everybody? No, these are just ideas to sort of make it a little easier.
Mhm.
And so the other thing too, the last piece, and I know in some of your text, as you were letting people know that we were going to be talking about this today, you talked about the word codependency.
Mhm.
That is a word that means different things to everybody. And I want to just enter into this piece of this conversation by saying these labels and diagnoses that are whipping around everywhere now, they're really just an invitation into a very big building. And that building and the rooms in that building and the decorations on the walls of the rooms in that building are going to look and feel different for each one of us. So the intentions are very laudable for these terms and diagnoses, and that we're looking to really understand the collective experience. But if something like a definition around codependency or another label or another diagnosis doesn't feel like a fit for you, don't feel like you have to accept it. But when it comes to codependency, it's what we've been kind of talking about. It is a trauma response, and it's based in the perception that we believe being needed is equal to being loved. So that can feel very different, right? And when we feel we're needed, we're consistently creating a dynamic where we are enabling ourselves and each other to believe that we can't do it on our own. We can't fill our own cup without this other person. And so there are lots of dynamics of codependency. And remember, like a trauma response, it's here for a very good reason. Codependency has kept us alive until now, making ourselves feel bad about this, if we notice these things in ourselves, is not going to be what helps us to transform this. We've got to really understand why we are the way we are with love and compassion, and then choose a new way of being without being the taskmaster of perfection upon ourselves, because that's not going to help either. But this sense of codependency is we want to feel, or we want to believe that we are so needed, because to us being needed is what we believe is equal to being loved. Whereas being loved is just a sense of, I am who I am and I deserve love. But so much of that can come with the way that we eat, the way that we prepare food, and the way that we share food, and the way that we receive others' opinions and judgments about what we're eating. So it really can become a personal journey of transformation and ascension and evolution and growth, no matter what way you're choosing to eat. But as long as you are not compromising your own authenticity, your own effectiveness, your own energy, your own self-love, and your own self-acceptance, when you are compromising those things or sacrificing them for another, that's always a place to kind of reset with that question. Is this bringing me toward joy and love?
Mm.
And if it's not, then we get to rethink, okay, how can I be supportive to myself and others in this place? I know all of us have heard this, but there's a beautiful sister in our Sophia circle, Carrie Harmon, and she says, how do I say what I mean what I say without being mean? How do we stand in that sort of pillar of light around our eating choices and stay true to ourselves while also being very understanding and compassionate without accepting abuse or dysfunctional behavior around other people's eating choices as well?
Wow, there's just so that is amazing, because I definitely view myself, or I've learned a lot of the patterns I have are like viewed as codependent patterns, and I definitely am a people pleaser. So when I first watched Forks Over Knives, I got so inspired that I've never really practiced setting boundaries before, so I probably became sort of a boundary bully. Like, it was just like, I was so excited about this is just what we're doing. So I'm sure everybody around me was like, oh my goodness, this is you're coming on really strong. Like, what's going on? And then coming back to like, okay, what other ways are there of being with this? And just like starting enrolling my family with just making, like you're saying, making amazing food and having fun. And then I felt a little bit in my mind, like I was getting pushed down. And then we can talk about that too, that being the Karpman Drama Triangle, then I get to be, here I come to save the day. And then everybody didn't want to change. So then I can be all like sort of persecuting and just like, I never get to do anything. And why are you always pushing me down? And then I get to go to the third step, which I didn't know, but that's my favorite, and that's to be the victim. So then I will go to get to slam the doors. I get to run in my room and just like be that little hurt child that's like in here, like, ah! But then what I kept doing to get myself out of that was I kept educating myself. I kept educating my family. I kept just pulling myself out of that, because being the victim no longer felt like a place where I wanted to be. I had found like a bigger purpose, and that was to stand up and be a voice for the voiceless, like for the animals. So by doing that, I could like climb my way out of the cave of depression and sadness and victimhood, and just, that's why I'm even here today. I mean, fuck, I'm sorry, but I'm like so sweaty, like my hands are sweaty. I'm so nervous, but I'm just like, woo, I'm doing it, And so just, I feel like finding that like higher purpose and just feeling an alignment, the more I can get to that, the more I can get out of that, just drama triangle.
You bring up a great point. So before we hit a record, I was telling Kristine, maybe 15 years ago, I did a psychodrama training on the Karpman Drama Triangle with a wonderful facilitator in the Tampa St. Pete area. Her name is Linda Condon. So the Karpman Drama Triangle, and those of you who know what a pack rat I am, look at all the binders behind me. I still have these papers. But I wanted to just share some specifics about the Karpman Drama Triangle. Stephen Karpman first talked about this in 1968. So the Karpman Drama Triangle is really a triangle where you have victim on one side, you've got the rescuer up here, and the persecutor here. Now, where you're placing these three roles on the triangle isn't important. What is important is how we understand how these roles sort of come up within us in our everyday lives. So I want to just say a couple of the things that Linda put on this beautiful handout so that we can resonate with it. And again, these are just roles that we play. It doesn't mean to insinuate that we are this way 100% of the time. That's just unrealistic. None of us ever plays the victim 100% of the time. None of us ever plays the persecutor or the rescuer 100% of the time. However, we are human beings, right? We've got to honor our humanness. We are very divine human beings, but we got to honor our humanness and say, this is part of what I came here to learn. And so if any of these things resonate with you or you recognize them within yourself, just hold it with compassion and love and peace. Let's not say, oh my gosh, I do this. I've got to change this. I'm wrong for doing this. And let's not highlight the negative. Let's start to solution focus around these. So for the Karpman Drama Triangle, for the victim role, Stephen Karpman labeled the victim as the power sucker who has the consistent belief system of, I can't do it. Poor me. Our victim self is very adept at playing the game. Yes, but like, how often do we do that? And our victim role really holds other people hostage in a passive or a passive aggressive way with lots of excuses and no accountability, blaming others, and really feeling like we are the disappointment, right? That's that victim role. Now there's a rescuer role as well. And the rescuer role, according to Stephen Karpman, is what he calls the power stripper. So this rescuer is enabling and by over focusing and caregiving with the let me fix that for you energy to the detriment of the self, right? So all of these are part of the codependent sort of foundation, and we might recognize them from that lens. So the rescuer, really, because the rescuer is fearing abandonment, the rescuer makes themselves crucial. That's that desire and belief that being needed is actually more valuable than knowing we are loved. So we really control others in our environment by creating the dynamic of, well, they need me. They can't get rid of me because they need me. However, this sends us, that rescuer role sends us into consistent hypervigilance. Our nervous system is constantly on in the rescuer way, and it really leads us to a lot of burnout. Now, the persecutor role, Stephen Karpman calls this the power monger. And so the persecutor is very blaming, shaming, sarcastic, must be right, always is trying to one up someone and convince themselves that they're better than. Really what the underlying fear of the persecutor is, though, is vulnerability, weakness, and powerlessness. So what we do in others when we're in this persecutor role is we create a sense of worthlessness, fear, shame, and sadness within them. That's what we're attempting to do, right? So that we can have power over the situation, or our perception of control. We feel like we've got it. So having said all that, if you want to step away from the triangle, what does that look like? Well, I mean, what do we do? You guys, what do we do when we want to shift something? What's our first step? Right? We take the blinders off. Awareness, right? The first step is not self-punishment. The first step is not becoming rigid in our attempts towards transformation. Our first step is not saying, well, then I am going to go on a juice cleanse and I am going to be so rigid. I am going to watch over every decision I make, and I am going to only drink juice, whether I'm starving and screaming and crying on the floor in agony. I will force myself to do this, right? So you see how like our attempts at transformation can actually kick us in the ass through the back door, right? Because we're so used to these patterns of punishment and self-criticism. So awareness, right? And then the second step is, once we're aware, what do we need to realize? We do a great job of this, ladies and gentlemen. Tim, we reach out for help. We know we're part of a larger family. We're not alone, right? Because all of the rescuer, the persecutor, and the victim, their story ends with the line, and guess what? You got to do all this on your own. And that is wildly untrue. We just don't have to. Now, I want to talk about this too. Kristine, do you think I call you or text you every time I need your help or support or love?
No.
Nope, I sure don't. You know why? Because we have spent time creating this energetic connection. I talk to you higher self to higher self. Elizabeth, Kim, and Tim, Bridget, who was on here before, all of our tribe. Same thing. I am consistently calling in the love of the group souls, of the groups that I've done over the years. And just receiving and knowing that I can be courageously vulnerable in whatever way feels in alignment for me. I can receive and ask for help and support and receive that help and support in whatever way feels in alignment for me. Now, we all know our internal barometer of, am I really doing this, or am I just convincing myself I'm doing this? Right. So that's where we've got to say, is this bringing me towards more love and joy? And if there's that little piece that goes, nope, not really, then we need to recalibrate and make a different decision. And maybe that's the time to step out courageously with our vulnerability in a different way. But so awareness, knowing we're not alone, reaching out, phoning a friend for help, and then integrating it, right? Just making these small daily interventions. Kristine and I talked about this yesterday. It's a sacred place suggestion in the Soul to Sisterhood book, and we did it yesterday, called Social Change. So if we think of this body as its own culture, which it is, our psyche, our ego, our higher self, all of our cells, all of our energetic, multidimensional wisdom, we are our own culture. If we think about that and we want to create lasting social change within, it's not going to happen with lots of big overt action. It's not going to happen with violence. Social change on the external, different researchers say you don't need a lot of money or political power. How this happens for lasting change is small daily choices made in compassionate, life-affirming ways. We just got to do that for ourselves. Small daily choices. We're allowed to fall off the sidewalk, and we're allowed to get right back up on. So really quickly, one last thing. I feel like I'm talking your hind leg off. I just want to also show this picture. So this is what Stephen Karpman says the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim turn into. I'll read this. So when we're aware and we're connected and we're integrating, our victim shifts from the victim role into empowered, responsible enactor. I love that. Empowered, responsible enactor. When we are really in this alignment, the rescuer role shifts from being a rescuer into caring, collaborative connector. Right? It's such a different feel. And when we're in alignment, the persecutor role shifts from being a persecutor into the assertive communicator. Isn't that exciting just to say those different things, right? Because we can get caught in the pejorative activation code of I'm a rescuer, I'm a victim, I'm a persecutor. No, get rid of all that. We're going to transform it. Yep, throw it away. All right, I've talked way too much. You talk.
No, I think it's absolutely amazing. I did want to open it up for questions. So if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and unmute and just ask. But yeah, I just think I love all this is coming back to love and compassion for ourselves. And that is a practice, right? And so I call myself like a recovering perfectionist. I'm like, okay, I figured this out. This is what I got. Now I'm going to fix it today. I should have fixed it yesterday, but okay, I'll do it today. And then I find myself in the triangle, and my husband and I will do different triangles. We're playing a little symphony together, like he's up down here, I'm up here. And then I'm like, okay, well, now he's down there, make him feel better. So then I will shift. And I'd be so like, if you can just take a step back and be like, wow, we're putting on quite the show right here. This is entertaining, instead of just like slamming doors and just leaving and just like doing our normal pattern, so I feel like it has the potential to shift everything.
Absolutely. The drama of human is the trauma of being human. And we don't have to choose to live there anymore. We get to release ourselves from our suffering and know that there's a different way.
Yeah, and I love that now when my daughter, my oldest is becoming a teenager, I feel like we will be able to just see where all that is coming from. And just like, I felt like I had a chance to have a really good conversation with her the other day, or just not being in the victim role of being a teenager, like the school, the teacher did this to me, that now that we had to do this, and everything just like you know. And I recognize it because we're all holding up mirrors for ourselves, like, oh my God, and I feel like a victim in middle school and high school, and everybody was out to get me. But it doesn't feel very good. It's not a very, and I'm like trying to tell her, as I'm telling myself, you're a leader. So how can we shift this what is going on at school? Do you think, can we view the teacher as a person? What do you think she's trying to accomplish? You know, do you think she wants to keep her job? Do you think there's some pressure keeping this job? Do you think she wants to sit in a room with 30 middle schoolers rolling their eyes at a choice that she just made? How do you think that makes her feel?
Yeah.
You know, you've danced since you were 3 years old. You don't like the choreography. Gently, in a nice way, don't say what you mean without being mean, and mean what you say, right? I want to help. I love dancing. How can I create something with you? Instead of being like, she made me do this and I look really silly, you know? I mean, it's just like these stories, I feel like, are just like everywhere. If we just like take a step back and be like, okay.
You know what, hearing you say that beautiful conversation you had with your daughter, which I'm always so inspired getting to hear about how you parent your 3 beautiful children. Yesterday in our Soul to Sisterhood group, we were lucky enough to have Brooke Medicine Eagle join us for a group, because the chapter we were focusing on, it was her book that is the suggested reading. Brooke had so many great wisdom teachings to offer, and one of them that I want to share is the 16-second rule. So Brooke said, when you're having these moments of wanting to beat yourself up, wanting to beat somebody else up, finding yourself on the drama, you know, the Karpman Drama Triangle. And she used the example of road rage. Give yourself 16 seconds to say it, rage it, claim it, stomp it, you know. And she said from her studies and research, after 16 seconds, that's when that frequency, that energetic vibration of what we're raging and storming and churning and burning about, in whatever way we're doing it, that's when it sets in to the supercomputer that is us. 16 seconds, we're in the clear. 17 seconds and more, that's when it starts to take root. So give yourself that permission. Give yourself permission on the 20th sunflower cup, when you've realized that you've just eaten 20 of them. And that natural response is powerful because we're so used to punishing ourselves. Give yourself 16 seconds to say what you got to say. And then on the 17th second, do something different with yourself. Whether it's getting up and walking around, whether it's texting a friend, whether it's going to the bathroom. Change your environment, change what's happening inside, change what's happening outside, so that that doesn't take root. And that 16-second rule feels like a really manageable thing.
Yeah, I love that. We have a question here. Tim, would you mind unmuting and telling us the question?
Oh, I was still working my way to the question. I was just doing a lot of typing there. I was basically just starting by sharing my own experience with this, especially on the topic of you know, sharing a table with loved ones who are still, you know, omnivorous, right? And especially in the early days, like when I first made this transition to veganism, and I remember showing up there for holidays at my parents' house with my family. You know, there are 5 kids in this family, spouses, you know, grandchildren, kids running all over the place, right? So these family meals, holiday meals, if we were in town for a weekend, they were an event, right? Everyone would show up. My parents would go to great lengths to, you know, prepare, you know, enough food to feed, you know, a small army, right? This is a big Midwestern family. So these are all going to be meat-centric dishes in our family tradition, right? Whether it's, you know, of course, the, you know, turkeys on Thanksgiving, you know, big hams around Easter time, just my dad at the grill or the smoker in the summertime or whatever it was, right? And it wasn't even long before I made this transition that he and I were exchanging tips on like how to brine a turkey before you know, do all this stuff yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden, I'm showing up with these different ideas. And of course, they felt judged, right? They felt that this was a rejection of their way of life. So there, initially there was this huge rift, right? They were, defensive. There were some challenging and really heated conversations. And I don't know why that caught me off guard. I guess maybe it shouldn't have, because maybe it's just because I was so used to all that love that was around that table. And so for all of a sudden for there to be that big gap was a big challenge, right? And I remember early on, after that first time, I can't remember if it probably wasn't a Thanksgiving. We were probably smarter than that to have that be the first meal we shared together. But I remember thinking after that first time that it was so tough, it was so awkward, and it just felt so much distance between us that I wasn't sure I could keep doing it. But I remember that drive back, I think it was probably to Chicago, thinking that I just couldn't accept that, right? That our connection had to be stronger than just the food we put on our plates, right? If it weren't, then what value did we have to one another? How were we serving one another if that was the extent of our relationship? So I guess to persist kind of took that leap of faith, to take them at their word that, the love we felt for each other was unconditional. And eventually by just, showing up again and again, bringing enough food to share, never asking them to do more to accommodate our choices, but more introducing them with enthusiasm to some things that, they hadn't put on their plates before. And it took time, but eventually, that awkwardness just kind of went away. We were the same people again, sharing food, sharing new food, being curious about things, as we always are. We're curious about the world. That's kind of one of the bonds that we shared, trying new things together. And this just became another one of those things. And kind of seeing the positives here too, with one of my brothers and his wife and their four younger kids. They're plant-based now, and to see them make this transition has been super gratifying. Another brother and his wife that are moving more in this direction every day. I think I've even influenced my parents to a certain extent with this stuff too, and every little bit helps. Every little bit counts, especially when I want them to be around for as long as possible and have those years be high quality health and hold on to like some joy of living. So I think that's part of it too, is when you understand that like some of these habits that your loved ones have, are especially if they're, doing like that standard American diet, right? This unhealthy kind of living. And you can see the results, right? That's where it gets difficult too. You can see some of the health complications that they're enduring. And of course, I'm quick to, see these things and think and really kind of know that, geez, if they could just make this simple change in their lives, they could reduce their suffering so much that we could have so much more quality time together in our time here. That can be frustrating. I've got to put that stuff aside and just live in the moment when we're together and just trust this journey that we're on. But I guess at the end of this long, telling kind of my own experience, I'm just curious to know, like, Jamie, what it's like for you. Do you see yourself influencing the people that you're around, or is it, have you experienced sort of that awkwardness, or has that faded over time? Does it get easier? Is it still hard with some people? Just kind of curious what your experience has been in that regard.
I would say a lot of my experience is similar to what you and Kristine have experienced when you're back at your families, because my family's a Midwestern family too, where every dish at the table, whether it's green beans or, a salad, has a meat or a dairy component in it. But like you, I made a decision early on that I wasn't going to ask anybody else to do more work to accommodate my new choice. However, I was going to consistently offer engaging, appetizing options and just set it out there at first. And then if a conversation or a question ensued after, I was really willing to talk about how I made it. And, if a question went deeper as to why I'm making the food choices that I'm making, I always really gauged my audience and just answered according to that, like kind of knowing I didn't want to outskill anybody by saying too much too soon, but really just giving kind of what I felt was the most pertinent in the moment for those conversations. And like you, there were some awkward times of just not understanding. And you could tell that even though I was taking the responsibility to shop for myself and Pearl and my husband, Phil, sometimes when he visits with us, even though I was taking that initiative and doing that shopping and doing the cooking, there was still kind of a sense of my choice made somebody else feel like they couldn't connect to me and the way they were used to connecting to me. So I had that decision. Do I get on the triangle and do I rescue? Do I persecute? Do I make myself the victim? Or do I just stay really strong in who I know I am, trusting, like you said, trusting the process, and just being very open to letting the situation be what it needed to be so that we could get to that next best scenario or next best step. And over the years, the playing field is completely even. So this year for Thanksgiving at my dad's house, we had so many vegan options. My dad just came for a visit for the first time in 5 years, and every meal he had in this house was vegan. And I heard him on the phone talking to his buddies, Jamie fixes these breakfast sausages in the morning, and I tell you what, with ketchup, you can't even tell the difference, and I mean, it just made my heart sing listening to him talk like that. Because I, like you, boy, I love my family. And when I see choices being made, especially on the plate, that I feel that I kind of knowing what I know about nutrition and things, perpetuate physical dis-ease, that hurts my heart. And I also know that I can't get in there and say, what you're eating is going to kill you, because that's going to be met with resistance too. But just offering whatever wisdom I have to share when asked, really, that was a throat chakra opening exercise I learned studying some different wisdom teachings, that a lot of times when our throat chakra is asking to be opened, we have this beautiful opportunity to really speak our truth. Yet when we are shoving ourselves in there in the attempts to try to open our throat chakra by declaring our truth, it's a very different vibration. So when invited, right, we can step in and really speak from a compassionate place that's very grounded. And there doesn't seem to be vulnerability for those as much vulnerability for those conversations to get heated. I hope that answered your question.
It totally does. There was something you said that really rang true with me too. It's like, it was a similar situation. It was, I think, the first time my parents made the trip from Nebraska to visit us here in Sarasota. And of course they stayed with us, right? And they actually helped us move down here, which was wonderful to have them kind of show up for us like that. It's quite a journey for them to make, and then to do it to really, help us on our journey was kind of amazing. But I remember it was one of these first breakfasts we had at the place where we had moved into, and I made this like, carrot lox, right? With, capers, and there's some nori, like seafood or seaweed paper in there to give it that kind of fishy flavor. It looks the part. It looks like smoked salmon, right? And I'd made these bagels with like avocado and tomato and red onion and some more capers on top of this thing, and garnished with dill. And my dad I remember seeing his eyes from across the room when he spotted that thing, because he didn't know what was coming for breakfast. And he just looked at it and pointed. He said, I want that. and I love, because there was something about, I think, seeing just those colors that resonated with him. He's a gardener too, as much as he, likes to eat meat because that's the way he was brought up, and, because it tastes good, right? We didn't give it up because it doesn't taste good. But he celebrates all kinds of things. So if I can lean into that, like understand what else he loves, and, create a dish that amplifies that and lets him eat with his eyes first. I mean, there's so many ways to open people's minds. Sometimes it's through their taste buds, right? It's just, or just through the appearance of something. And I just remember how gratifying it was for him to react that way, and to see that that gap or any of that awkwardness that he may have felt. Okay, what's it going to be like? We're staying with these guys. We know it's just going to be, vegan food for the next 4 days. But like, how's this going to go? And then meal after meal, they're like, oh, this is kind of awesome. Not just because, they're, we're taking care of them, trying to, be good hosts and prepare food for them and make them feel loved and welcome. but to really kind of bring out our best, and cater it to what we know their tastes are too. And it's kind of exciting when you get to share that with these people that you love, especially when you've got that, that early sort of distance, that early sort of awkwardness and uncertainty in the rearview mirror, and to see that gap close even further. It's one more thing that just makes this whole journey feel more gratifying day by day as you move forward into this lifestyle. It's incredible. It's not like there's no diminishing returns on it. It just grows as you see it radiate out into the world. And so, yeah, I'm glad you had that experience with your folks, with your dad, because it does. It's like we can still share food together, and it becomes something new, a new experience that we can share together, rather than going through the motions of, oh, this is that same dish for that same holiday. That starts to feel pretty rote. There's some excitement to it. And I think that sparks new memories. And I think it actually deepens these relationships in ways that were wholly unexpected at the onset.
I totally agree. People are always going to be drawn to good food. And you, my friend, are an amazing chef. So your family is so lucky to get to eat the food that you prepare.
Well, the nice part is that I'm surrounded by, creative thinkers in the kitchen around here too. So I've got, my daughter Matilda, like she is happy to, is getting inspired by things that she sees on, that she reads about, or that she sees on Instagram or whatever it is. And she's in the kitchen trying to figure this stuff out already. Kristine's the same way. She's a curious minded person. And once she starts down, any path toward how do I figure this out, I mean, she's going to find her way. So I've been just as fortunate and very, to have the, be on the receiving end of that kind of generosity and creativity. I'm, happy to reciprocate. So it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of. We should have you over for some food soon. We're starting to get hungry thinking about all these things we can make and eat together.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so wonderful. I feel like we can keep this going all day, but I get to be mindful of everybody's time. Jamie, thank you so much. How can people find you if they want to learn more about anything?
They can look on the Divine Mommy or the Soul to Sisterhood website, or they can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and Pinterest and
everywhere.
There might be LinkedIn. Yeah. So I think on LinkedIn, it's my profile, Jamie Day. On Facebook, it's Divine Mommy and Soul to Sisterhood. Those are two different pages where I share content about all the upcoming events and groups and content from the book. And the other ways too, the Divine Mommy website and the Soul to Sisterhood website, there are links directly there to email me.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today. You made my day.
Oh, honey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate all that you're doing. And I mean, it's like you've said before, you're changing the world one plate at a time.
One plate at a time. Yeah, I love that. It's empowering. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye. Have a lovely day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Mwah.